What happened while we were away, brought to you by starting to get answers on autism. President Trump at the White House yesterday was joined by his various heads of public health, including RFK Jr., Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, Marty Makary, and Mehmet Oz, among others, to discuss their opening volley in finding the cause and maybe some cures for autism. Part of the plan is warning pregnant women against taking acetaminophen, the active ingredient in Tylenol during pregnancy, and cautioning use amongst young children and toddlers. Also, RFK Jr. announced a therapeutic recommendation for folate deficiency linked to autism spectrum disorder. But what really has people talking are these statements from President Trump.
You know it's artificially induced. It's not like something that when you go from all of those, healthy babies to a point where I don't even know structurally if a country can afford it. And that's the least of the problems. To have families destroyed over this is just so terrible. I also, and we've already done this, we want no mercury in the vaccine. We want no aluminum in the vaccine. The MMR, I think, should be taken separately. This is based on what I feel. Chickenpox is already separate because when that got mixed in, I guess they made it for a while, it really was bad. So they make chickenpox. Individually, they're okay. When you mix them, something maybe happens. So there's no downside in doing it. It's not like, if you do it, bad things. No, it's only good side. And it may not have that much of an impact, but it may have a big impact. So let those be taken separately. And then hepatitis B is sexually transmitted. There's no reason to give a baby that's almost just born hepatitis B. So I would say wait till the baby is 12 years old and formed and take hepatitis B. And I think if you do those things, it's going to be a whole different. It's going to be a revolution in a positive sense.
Some in Maha were a little underwhelmed by yesterday's conference at the White House, while others like Nicole Shanahan effusively praised Trump and RFK Jr. for having the courage to start expanding the Overton window towards questioning big pharma companies and vaccines. In other news, President Trump addressed the United Nations this morning and knocked certain allies of the United States who are now trying to recognize a so-called Palestinian state again.
Now, as if to encourage continued conflict, some of this body is seeking to unilaterally recognize a Palestinian state. The rewards would be too great for Hamas terrorists for their atrocities. This would be a reward for these horrible atrocities.
Trump also jabbed the UN as a whole.
I ended 7 wars, dealt with the leaders of each and every one of these countries, and never even received a phone call from the United Nations offering to help in finalizing the deal. All I got from the United Nations was an escalator that on the way up stopped right in the middle. The First Lady wasn't in great shape. She would have fallen. And then a teleprompter that didn't work. These are the 2 things I got from the United Nations, a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter.
Since we last had a regular montage, the New Hampshire man fatally shot during a wedding reception at Sky Meadow Country Club in Nashua on Saturday night has been identified as 59-year-old Robert DeCesare. At his first court appearance on Monday, the suspect, Hunter Nadeau, a 23-year-old, waived a formal arraignment on the second-degree murder charge in the shooting death of DeCesare. The shooting took place during a wedding reception, as I said, and witnesses described what happened in the lead-up to and during the shooting.
Did he say anything while it was going on?
Yeah, he said the children are safe and free Palestine. That's what it was.
You heard that?
That's what I heard.
We also learned late last week that the man who traveled from California to Maryland to the residence of Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh for an attempted and unsuccessful assassination now identifies as a woman. Nicholas Roske is facing 30 years in prison after he traveled from California to Maryland after the leaking of the Dobbs decision to attempt to assassinate Kavanaugh. Court filings show the government is now calling him by a feminine name and using feminine pronouns. ABC announced yesterday they're lifting the suspension of late-night host Jimmy Kimmel and says he'll be back on air tonight. Broadcasting company Sinclair, who owns dozens of local ABC affiliates around the country, announced last night they will preempt Kimmel's programming until talks with ABC are concluded. Sinclair last week said they would be pulling Kimmel from their local affiliates until the network or the host apologizes for lying about Charlie Kirk's assassin and his political affiliations. And finally, let's get a vibe check on Boomer Libs. For those of you listening, that's an older woman wearing a Make America Kind Again t-shirt. On the back are the words, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you." And she proceeds to beat the crap out of an effigy piñata of Donald Trump. That's what happened while we were away.